When you say managers of managers, how high up did this go? Did it go all the way up to Mr. Stumpf, the CEO?
Some of that is still being determined. But I think that it has been acknowledged by the bank that the firings of employees included hundreds of people who were not simply frontline employees committing fraudulent acts with accounts, but people who were managing those people and people who were managing the managers.
That was Consumer Financial Protection Bureau Chief Richard Cordray saying that the escalating Wells Fargo scandal could go all the way to the CEO's office. 5,300 employees fired for ginning up unauthorized bank accounts in a scheme to generate fees and meet sales quotas. The bank is paying a $185 million fine to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to settle the case, and in doing so without admitting any wrongdoing. But now word is that the feds are also investigating. Wells Fargo CEO John Stumpf says the blame is on the workers, not the bank's culture.
So how big is this, and could it get even bigger and spread to other banks? Our Fox Business All-Stars, Melissa Francis and Charles Gasparino, here to join us. And I'm sort of laughing, listening to what Anthony's reading here. I mean, Charlie, this is not a surprise. This is the culture of these banks, is it not?
It's not supposed to be. I mean, I don't want to get into, like, cultures and whether banks are now set up to rip people off. I don't necessarily believe that.
It's a sales culture.
No, I don't know all the banks. I'm not making a broad brush, but I will say two things. Where's Warren Buffett on this story?
Well, we'll get to that, yeah.
Because, you know, this guy talks about every scam in the world, and it's weird that this scam that involves small investors, depositors, as a matter of fact, doesn't get on his radar screen. But the other thing is, I think what we're going to see when we get out of this thing is something that I've been talking about a long time, that these banks are too big to manage. There was a lot of scandal and scams going on in the 1990s involving Citigroup and in the 2000s. They never really touched Sandy Weil, the CEO. It's unclear if he was directly involved. I mean, there was a couple things where he might have known about analysts, pumping up stock recommendations. They never brought cases against him, but one of the problems, I think, with prosecuting the CEO is that these banks are so big, the CEO doesn't know where everything is. It's like prosecuting Jamie Dimon for
but here we are 8 years, post Lehman bankruptcy this week.
Right.
That gets to the board of directors. Isn't it the CEO's responsibility? If the CEO is going to make $19, $20, $27 million a year, isn't it their responsibility to know about this?
5,000 employees opening more than 2 million accounts, that's systemic. That means that within the bank, what kind of incentives are you providing to those employees that they're willing to go that far?
Well,
I mean, that's a lot. To open an account. And you've got to think, it can't only be going on at Wells Fargo. I know Adam Shapiro was making calls this week asking other banks, do you provide the same type of incentive?
They all say no.
They didn't return his phone call in most cases.
We've gotten return
This won't be the only bank. This won't be the only bank.
We spoke to every single bank, me and my producer. They're saying that this
categorically they did not provide any sort of incentive.
J.P. Morgan says they don't have this issue. Now, I want to point this out.
They don't have this issue. Isn't the same as we didn't provide the same incentive.
Let me just point this out. Why isn't Jamie Dimon indicted for the London Whale? Let me tell you, I'm not saying he should be, but you have to ask yourself.
Because it didn't involve 5,000 employees.
Involved a $5 billion trade of someone who reported directly to him.
We're missing a big component of the story.
Ira Drew reported directly to him.
The big component of the story that we're missing is that the zero interest rate environment is putting an enormous amount of pressure on these banks. They can no longer make that interest rate spread.
Well, what I said is it's a sales culture.
Finding other ways to create fees, and in this case, this is an illicit way. Totally. And listen, the fish stinks from the head down.
Charlie, you mentioned Warren Buffett. Now, obviously, so the viewers understand, Warren Buffett, the largest shareholder of Wells Fargo through Berkshire Hathaway, a gentleman who would typically come out in public and have a lot of commentary based on the past on subject matters such as this. He hasn't said whether or not he thinks the CEO should go.
Are you calling Warren Buffett a hypocrite?
I've called Warren Buffett a hypocrite before. I'm not going to not call him. Yes, I mean, there's a bunch of hypocrisy here in the sense that if this was not his investment and he was not a major shareholder of the company,
we should point out.
Let's go to our next topic, which I think is also terrific for us. Our friend Charlie broke the other huge story this week, and he did it a full day before anyone else. Bayer, with a $66 billion all cash for Monsanto, to create a behemoth in the agricultural.
John
You were so early on this thing. A lot of people didn't even believe you were that early. So congratulations. But thanks to regulators, this deal is unfortunately far from done. Based on the stock price, the street seems to doubt it. What's going to happen here, Charlie? What do you think?
Listen, I think one of the problems with and here's the parallel with the Wells Fargo, is that we have so much regulation. Guess what? They couldn't catch something like this. We have regulation where it doesn't need to exist. This deal is going to be looked at 40 different ways to Sunday, primarily because you have 4 or 5 different regulators from the EU, from Canada to South America to us. And they hate the notion that a company might produce genetically modified food. And that's what this is going to come down to. My guess is, and this is just a guess, the deal does not get approved, that they go back to the drawing board. I will tell you that Warner Baumann, the CEO of Bayer, and his counterpart at Monsanto, and a lot of the people surrounding the deal believe that they've spoken enough with the regulators, they're going to get it through. If you believe them, there's an enormous trade here, isn't it? Where's it trading at?
On this one, I actually agree with Charlie. When you looked at the market the other day after the deal closed, you saw clearly that traders did not believe the deal was going to go through because of that gap between where the stock was and where the bid is. I think that it will be for the wrong reasons. The same idea that they can't handle the idea of GMO foods have gotten this negative label, even though, I mean, let's be honest, if we're going to try and feed the world, this is where the technology comes from.
90% of the corn now is genetically modified.
Right.
So
I like my seedless watermelon.
I like corn that looks like corn that I grew up on. Did you ever see what it looks like when it's not genetically modified? If they actually had something like that, it looks very bizarre. I'm just telling you, here's the thing, and I had this argument with Deirdre Imus, of all people, on Twitter, because she's a big food advocate, right? I said, Deirdre, the bottom line is...
I've never known you to have arguments on Twitter.
I was going to say,
your first Twitter argument.
Let me isolate this one argument.
But this is a good argument, because it didn't degenerate into, name calling. But I said, unfortunately, poor people can't shop at Whole Foods.
Yeah.
And they can't. I mean, we need to create food that's affordable so people stay healthy. And I understand you can always make it better, but to just label GMOs as poison, as some of these food advocates are, and they're like the people that believe in global warming. There's no debate about the science.
This deal's going to close, yes or no?
I don't think so.
Yes or no?
It should, but it won't.
I give it a 40% chance of closing. But if you think it's going to close, and you're a trader out there, it's trading at 106. The bid is 128. That's a good deal, man.
Charlie, just go back to Wells Fargo before we run. Is Stump going to survive?
Yes. They don't have an email connected to him.
No.
Yes, no. We'll follow up on who's right on this one.
I like him too, but no.
Melissa, Charlie, thanks for joining us.